Have you ever caught yourself imagining a conversation that never actually happened? Maybe you're in the shower, walking alone, or lying in bed at night, and suddenly your mind creates a completely detailed scene. You're arguing with someone, explaining something perfectly, or imagining a future moment where everything finally goes right. The strange part is none of it is real, but the emotions feel real. You might feel excitement, anger, anxiety, or even relief from a conversation that exists only in your head. And if you do this often, you might have wondered this at some point. Why do I keep imagining scenarios that never happen? Well, psychologically, this behavior is actually far more common than people think. But it's not just random imagination. In many cases, it's your brain trying to solve something deeper. People who imagine fake scenarios often do it automatically. You're walking somewhere, and suddenly you're imagining explaining something to someone. Or maybe you replay a situation from earlier in the day. Except this time, in your imagination, you say the perfect thing, the perfect response, the perfect comeback. Sometimes you imagine success, recognition, future achievements. Other times it's the opposite. Your mind creates worst case scenarios about things that haven't even happened yet. You imagine things going wrong, people misunderstanding you, arguments that might never actually occur. And the strange thing is, your brain treats these imaginary situations almost like real experiences. Your heart rate changes, your emotions react, your body responds. Psychologists sometimes refer to this as mental simulation. Your brain constantly runs simulations of possible situations. It's actually one of the reasons humans are so good at planning. Before you do something in real life, your brain quietly runs different possibilities in the background. In a way, your imagination acts like a rehearsal space. Athletes do this intentionally. They visualize their performance before a competition. Public speakers imagine their speech before stepping on stage. But for many people, the simulation system becomes active even when it's not necessary, and that's where those imaginary scenarios start appearing throughout the day. But there's another layer most people don't notice, because people who frequently imagine fake scenarios usually aren't doing it just for entertainment. Their mind is trying to resolve something emotionally. Sometimes it's unfinished conversations, sometimes it's anxiety about the future, and sometimes it's a quiet desire for control. We'll come back to that idea in a moment because once you notice this pattern, you start to understand why certain people imagine scenarios much more often than others. Not all imagined scenarios are the same. Psychologists often notice three common patterns. The first is argument scenarios. This is where someone imagines explaining themselves, defending their point, or winning an argument. Usually, it's a conversation they wished had gone differently. The second type is future success scenarios. This is where people imagine achieving something important, like getting recognition or proving themselves. These scenarios can feel motivating, but they can also become a form of mental escape. And the third type is worst case scenarios. This is where the mind imagines negative outcomes before they even happen. What if they misunderstand me? What if I fail? What if everything goes wrong? Your brain starts preparing responses to situations that might never occur. But remember the deeper reason we mentioned earlier. This is where it becomes clearer. People who imagine fake scenarios often have one thing in common. They spend a lot of time thinking about how others perceive them. Not necessarily because they want attention, but because their brain is constantly analyzing social situations. So the brain creates imaginary conversations as a way to process those interactions. It's like your mind is constantly practicing for social situations. But when this habit becomes frequent, imagination stops being a tool and starts becoming a mental loop. Sometimes these imagined scenarios become more satisfying than real interactions. Because in your imagination, you control everything. You say the perfect thing, people respond the way you want. The situation unfolds exactly as expected. Real life rarely works like that. And that's why some people get stuck in these mental simulations. Not because they want to avoid reality, but because imagination offers a version where things make sense, where responses are clear and outcomes feel predictable. But here's the interesting psychological shift. Imagination itself isn't the problem. In fact, imagination is one of the brain's most powerful tools. It helps humans plan, create, solve problems, and prepare for challenges. The issue only appears when imagination replaces action because real growth happens in reality, not in simulation.